Hello. How you
Hello,
doing, Logan?
everybody. Hi, Eric.
Hi. How you doing?
Pretty well, all things considered. To the people out there who don't know this, I am not a morning person, and we haven't changed our clocks yet
Yeah.
in the States, but the show has changed in the UK. So I am up and functioning about the time I usually consider turning off and getting up.
Oh wow.
And so, good luck, folks.
Hi, Sarah, and my lovely wife Rita.
Hi, Rita.
But today I guess we're talking about um, does the strength of the history determine how haunted a place is?
Yeah, and I've tried to think about what that means a couple of times, and you gave me one idea. Oh, I can't remember exactly what you said. Like I said, it's early.
And you're asking the
But
wrong
the
person.
strength
But
of the history, I think one way that could be looked at is, was the activity or the historical event
yes, I know.
strong enough that you have a weak event, is that going to leave a weaker imprint or weaker energy than the Battle of Hastings, for example, if
Yeah.
they can ever find the battlefield. Um, and um, I just use that as an example. And I think there's some possibility with that. I think it also, though, even if it's not as strong of an event, if it's one that's been repeated for decades or centuries, I think that also builds up more of a layer. Um,
You mean like reenactments, maybe?
no, not reenactments so much, but you go to a church that's been in the following the Catholic ritual for 1,500 years, and I could imagine that the what especially a medium's going to pick up
Yeah.
is going to be stronger and more well-rounded there than it would be in a church that was just opened 3 weeks ago and on land that had never had ritual before. And I
Yeah.
say that in part because when I go to ritual sites that have been different kinds of ritual, but over thousands of years, um, that energy is really strong. Of course, that could also be cause and effect. The ritual practiced creates energy, and the site draw people to ritual because of the site itself. So
Wow.
I think there's maybe a little of both. Um, I don't know. Anybody in the audience have anything? Eric and I are here all by ourselves,
Yeah,
which
that's
is
right.
kind of nice. It's the first time I've been on a show just with you. Um,
Were intense. Could literally feel the energy there. I believe that. That was actually one of the things I was going to bring up for the Gettysburg. Is that I've
uh-huh.
heard a lot of stories about people doing the reenactments and actually seeing ghosts during the reenactments.
I've talked to and read directly from people who have had personal experiences just as tours,
Oh, wow.
sometimes or tourists, sometimes as investigators, but other times not, and seeing soldiers who then just disappear. Hearing, oh, there's one bridge in particular where there's been a lot of activity. I think it's a covered, is it a covered bridge?
I don't
I'm
know.
trying to, it's been a long time since I heard about this, and
Mm.
I'm trying to figure out, it might have been a covered bridge with big holes because people were jumping, soldiers had jumped out of it,
Oh,
so, or off of it. So I'm trying to put the pieces together. But yeah, and these were just um, regular people, sometimes out for a drive, and sometimes they're looking for activity, but not always.
but you also pick up a lot of stuff when you go out to historic places too. You said before, at least. So.
Yeah, that's kind of why I go a lot of time. Well, I'm in the history buff, but I also then like to see what the history wants to show me,
Yeah.
and um, that's always pretty fun. Um, although it was interesting the first time I got shot.
You got shot. What?
Yeah, I was driving down the road on the way to a workshop I was doing at the oldest purpose-built inn in the state of Washington.
Wow.
And it was a truly dark and stormy night, and tree branches crashing down, and all of a sudden there was this guy standing in the middle of the road with a shotgun. Now I figured out partly saw him with my third eye, partly with my physical eye,
Oh,
and he wasn't quite solid, so I figured out what was going on for a long time. I mean, not after not long.
yeah.
And I hadn't been shot spirit with, by a ghost before, and I figured, okay, well, it can't hurt, it can't be anything. Um, so I went ahead and kept going, and he shot me, and it didn't hurt. Did no blood,
Wow.
no damage to the car. It was just kind of interesting, but and it wasn't personal. It was it was uh, an activity that was just blindly playing over and over sometimes
Okay.
because of a borderland dispute.
Oh, wow.
So is what I picked up on it, and I kept going, and had an interesting story to tell when I got to the hotel.
Yeah.
So um, I don't know why that came up. I'm sorry.
Oh no, well, it's all part of the. You got to think it's part of the whole thing about the energy. If it's strong enough, it can be imprinted on that area, and then replay and replay.
Right. Yeah. And it's to me it's fascinating. I don't I enjoy investigating for a short period of time,
Hmm.
and then to be honest, I get bored.
Yeah,
Um you're sitting there watching meters do things, and or hoping they will. And then trying to figure out if it's somebody's cell phone, or um a plane, or an anomaly. And so what I like to do is I like to work with making connection to the beings that are there,
yeah.
and letting them tell me whatever they want to tell me, or lead me wherever they want to lead me. I kind of wander around. I break all the rules as far as sticking together. I try to be good, but
Yeah, sometimes you just gotta wander off and explore something that you think is cool. I get that with my ADHD all the time. Go, I wonder what that does or what that feels like.
yeah. And for me, a lot of times I'm just listening to the beings that are there, or I'm sensing, oh, there's something interesting over here, and I try to be aware of my surroundings.
Yeah,
And you know, you get into the mountains where I live, and you have abandoned mines, and you have holes in the ground, and you could run into an old volcanic fissure, or
oh wow,
um, new ones you'd know they smell bad.
yeah,
Um, it's and other places out of state, or even on a lot of this state, you got to watch out for venomous snakes or spiders or different things. And
yeah.
so I do try to be aware, but it can be a little difficult.
Oh yeah,
Um,
definitely
well,
can.
shoot, even in England, I have to watch out for adders. I think it's so terribly unfair that a climate like theirs has a venomous snake.
Yeah. Well, if like when I go, I plan on wearing my snake gaiters. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many people actually get bitten by them over there, but if a number, nobody's died in for forever.
yeah,
But it's very painful. It can do a lot of damage. Um, you need medical assistance, and who wants? But shoot, a simple garden snake, they don't brush their teeth. They
No,
may not have venom, but
yeah, you
you
can
got a
still get it
good
really
chance of
bad.
getting tetanus or God
Mm,
knows what all else. You got to go get your shots loaded up.
Nettie. Yeah,
Uh,
I have no problem picking up snakes whatsoever here because we don't have any here. Venomous, anyways.
okay.
So I used to do it all the time, and I've gotten bit a couple times. Yeah, it does hurt, and yeah, their mouths are dirty, so you can get infection if you don't take care of it right away.
Yeah. No, I have a healthy respect of snakes now. I used to have a wild, crazy fear of them, period.
Oh wow.
Well, we lived for 3 years when I was very little, in out in the desert in a small little town, my dad's first teaching job. And the townspeople said, "Oh, we haven't seen rattlesnakes or black widows."
Mhm.
Well, I've regularly found black widows. And
Oh
my
wow.
sister was born while we lived there. We would have had less than a minute to know she had been bitten by one, to drive the hour to get to a doctor, you
Wow.
know? And that's with being friends with the sheriff who would have given us a red light escort.
Mm.
Um, and shoot, I was 4 when we left, so it wouldn't have been good for me either.
Yeah.
And the year after we left, the neighbor duplex had a rattlesnake on their back door
Oh
step.
wow.
So I just grew up really afraid of those things. And as I got older, I became less afraid of non venomous snakes.
Wow.
And I don't let it stop me. I just pay attention. I've climbed all over Bryce Canyon and the Arches and Zion, and taken mules down Grand Canyon, and I've explored the sites in the Sahara, and I just am very mindful and try
Yeah.
to ask what I need to be careful of, um, because it's just winding up in the hospital with snake bite
Yeah.
just
Do you
doesn't
think of
make
rat
me
snakes?
feel good.
I don't mind
Rat
them.
snakes aren't venomous,
Mm.
and they eat the things that are pests. And
Yep.
my understanding is they aren't aggressive, so go for it. They're good. I am at a point in life where I agree. You don't kill the snake, even if it's a venomous one.
Yep.
You move it, unless they're really nasty or really aggressive. Then I don't care. Get rid of them.
Yeah. I used to play with gardener snakes when I was young.
Yeah, a lot of people did. I was no, no, thank you.
Of course, I'm not afraid of spiders either. So,
Yeah. Well, I've gotten a lot better about those too. And if I see one in the house that is just minding its own business and doesn't look too intimidating, I mean, it doesn't have to do with size even, and it's not making cobwebs all over the place,
mm.
right? Let it be.
Oh,
It's eating other bugs.
yeah.
Uh, if it looks too big, and if it, well, not even big, if it looks like the thing of nightmares, and I might have a come to reckoning. But
Yeah.
I'd say 90% of them or more I leave alone. But just don't hop into bed with me.
I
Uh,
do.
well, what else? Well, how else are we going to talk about this subject? That's one of the interesting things about this show is um, we don't always have the format to really um,
Figure out what to.
follow, in a sense. Yeah.
Well, we never do. We always go off like we just talked about like 10 minutes about spiders and snakes. But
Yeah. Which makes me think of a song. But anyway, it's way too early for me to be in voice to sing, so I won't.
well, and going back on strength of something happening like the atomic bomb, that had to create something.
The what? Oh, the
The
atomic
atomic
bomb?
bomb. Yeah.
Yeah, and that would be an interesting place to go, with all respect.
Mm.
Um, Partly to pay respects to the people who not just died but were affected by it, because people still are.
Yeah.
Um, and politically, that's interesting too, because the military told, oh, was it Eisenhower?
Yeah.
Um, the president at the time, that no, these were military only targets, not civilian targets.
Yeah.
And that's part of why now the president calls the shots on when the nukes go, not the military.
Yeah.
So it's kind of from a historical perspective that way. But I'm old enough, I remember, my grade school and junior high, we had fallout shelters.
Yeah.
Um, and you have the drills, you watch the movies,
Really. Wow.
which even in third grade, you're going, yeah, like that's going to work.
Yeah,
Um,
I know.
um, but you get a lot of the civil defense stuff. It wasn't as strong as it was a couple years before, but yeah, because I was born in the mid 50s, so I was in early grades through the 60s, and um, very much the Cold War. I remember the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Oh, well.
Not well, I was little, but I
Yeah.
remember it. And
Well, and then I was wondering too about investigating wise, and I hear, wow, I had a conversation with this one group about investigating a prisoner of war camp, back from World War One or two or whatever, the Germans.
okay.
And they're like, oh, I would never do that. That'd be so disrespectful. Why? Maybe some of those people want to get their story out. Some of the prisoner people that were imprisoned there.
I think it depends on the intent
Mhm.
of and what people do with the research and the evidence.
Yeah.
If you're using a place like that for self-aggrandizement
Exactly.
and purely for commercial purposes, yes, it can be very disrespectful.
Yeah.
If you're interested in learning and even sharing that information and even making some money off of that information, that doesn't have to be disrespectful if it's done in the true respectful spirit.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Now, when I was at Auschwitz, Baden-Baden, I took very few pictures.
Mhm.
I kept my video notes for me, and in any publications, books, anything, I have a very generic piece that I'd been there
Yeah.
and that the evil from that place was so strong that 4 years of that totally erased all of the couple thousand or more years of habitation by people that had lived there before. In
Wow.
all the joy, everything from the joy, the sorrow, to all the things of life, their energy was gone, or
Yeah.
I didn't pick it up. It
Wow.
was just, and so it was actually kind of a neutral feel to it, because of the cancellation. But that in itself was a pretty power statement, and I
Wow.
left it at that. It's man's inhumanity to man,
Wow. What?
and that
What?
can't be celebrated.
Yeah.
Oh, what a nice baby.
And she wants attention, and I don't know. Every time I'm on live, she wants attention from me.
Yeah, well, you're not giving it to her, so you're giving it to somebody and not her, so
Yeah. Well, now you're caught. See, that's what happens.
I think the only thing more jealous of attention than a cat is a dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
Well, have you had a chance to go to many of these spots, and
No, I
with
have.
high intensity?
No, I haven't. And that's the problem too. And that's one reason why I'm so anxious to get over to England next year. Because you cannot imagine, well, like even Scotland with the Jacobite War and everything else. I want to go
Hmm.
see that. You know,
Right. Well, and Scotland goes back so long, and the Scottish clans. The only time they weren't killing each other is when they gathered together to kill the English.
Mm.
Um, if they had a foreign invader, they were pretty good at combining forces, but otherwise,
Yeah,
I mean, that's a very war-torn country for forever. The Picts, um, and the Irish immigration in what was that, 4th century, 5th century,
I
3rd
don't know.
century? Down in the one area, I mean, there was some sharing down in the southwestern part of Scotland pretty early on,
Yeah,
and it was when the Irish missionaries were going over as well. But there were settlements, communities. I think there was even a king. I have to double check to remember if the Irish were ruling that part, or kings were ruling that part of Scotland, or vice versa. But it was pretty much a connected community with parts of Ireland at one point. Um, no, you'll love it when you're over there. There's so much incredible history and prehistory.
yeah.
And the
And I also want
prehistory is what I love the most.
yeah. I want to also look at the architecture of some of the really old buildings too. Even the ones that are falling down and are fascinating to me. They just are.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're beautiful in ruin form, but you also can see things you can't see when they're complete.
Mm.
And any of those places you can, it's always helpful to get a good guide. If they have guides that'll take you around. And if not, try to get a pamphlet or a booklet, something that explains the sites and the different, unless they're well marked,
Yeah,
because there's so much. And you've got to go to Flag Fen
I'm sure I'll get
and
lost in some places. Sure I
oh yeah,
am.
and Grimes Graves, and those are all fairly close to Vivian.
Wow.
In fact, she took me to Flag Fen. I drove to Grimes Grave on my own,
Oh, wow.
and oh, what was the other name of the other place? Stony Camp. That was another one close to her.
Cannot go
So
wrong with Scotland. There is so much history to consider. Those visits will keep you busy for a long time. Oh, I know. That's why I got to keep going back and back and back and back.
yeah, I know. That's why part of why I'm so upset my travel funds are empty.
Yeah,
Um, I got to figure out how to reload them. Because, well, and I've also got so many friends that I've developed over there in person
yeah.
that I miss seeing my friends. Um, but, uh,
Oh, Kat, you really got me good, huh?
uh-oh.
It's okay. It's only a little blood.
Oh, well. Yeah, I think cats are half vampire.
Mm.
They like to draw the blood, but that's as far as it goes. Um,
Actually, I
I'm
think
trying
so.
to think more about our question, too. On
Yeah.
some of the places I've been, I've been to a lot of places where there isn't necessarily a lot of activity people see
Mm.
as a haunted or experience, but where
Hey, Robert.
it's there deeply anyway,
Mm.
because I pick up on it and what's going on.
Oh, wow.
And I'm wondering how that's related, um, why some places with a lot of extreme history, they have that strength, but not the activity.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it has to do with just simply there have been so many people over so many years that you don't notice it so much. It kind of all blends, or the individuals don't come out so much. It's just that energy imprint and that story that's imprinted in the energy,
Yeah.
or what, or most entities don't make themselves known. I mean, if you think about it, after all modern humans are 200 or 300,000 years old. I've read reports right in there. Plus, we've got the ancient humans that go back over 2 million years.
Yep.
You would think that if all of us were active as ghostly type beings, there'd be a whole lot more activity in the world than there is.
And you got to wonder if just the natural form of the land, like the minerals underneath it or the water or whatever, creates that activity too, you know?
Yeah, and I think it can make a difference. I know people talk about basalt being a good source for that, running water, iron. The town I live in, actually, the Portland is actually the suburb of the town I live in, because we were the established city, and when Portland was created, in fact, Portland was named in a museum house that I'm on the board of. That's one of the things I like about Scotland. And over here, you leave the city center, and about an hour later, if you're lucky, you're out of the sprawl.
Yeah.
Um,
Same here.
yeah. Oregon's a little better because we have some laws about urban growth boundaries. But where was I going? I'm sorry, folks. I can't remember what I was saying. It wasn't a lie.
Well, you're talking about your area, about the rocks and the.
Oh, yeah. But we've got the second longest northerly flowing river in the world running through town. We've got 2 blocks, or roughly 2, maybe 3 blocks from the river are train tracks that are active a lot. We're built on basalt. We've got all of the things that are supposed to be indicators, but we were also the first incorporated city west of the Mississippi, not the first settlement incorporated city. It's a difference. We were the capital of the Oregon Territory, and arguably the first state capital. And so this was where everything happened for the entire Pacific Northwest. And for those of you that don't know our geography out here, the Pacific Northwest was the current states of Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and the western sides of Wyoming and Montana. So we were huge.
Yeah.
And we were the bosses. And so I think that's part of why this town is so active. Plus, things have moved. The whole town was down on the lowest level, close to the river. And the falls, we have the second largest waterfall by volume in the country, if not North America, only second to Niagara. And it's where in 1889, Oregon City produced the first long distance electrical transmission in the country. And I've read several histories that say it was the first in the world.
Wow.
And so, you get a lot of that stuff going. And I think it builds up even more of the more the feel of the place. but not necessarily always the entities of a place.
Yeah.
Although we have a lot of that too. I used to do ghost tours in town for a friend of mine's company, and
Wow.
we had things happen every night. I mean, the tours were always changing because we kept getting new stories from the businesses or the locations or events that happened on our tours.
Oh, wow.
It was great.
Amazing.
Rocky Smith still does them. They're outstanding tours, of course. When I did them, they were better. Anyway, Rocky is a
Sure.
fabulous tour guide. He knows a great deal. Northwest Ghost Tours,
Okay.
and that's a plug. Sorry, but
That's all right.
for anybody coming out over here, his tours are well worth it, and you can find it online. NW Ghost Tours should get you to all the pages, but and he also now is the director of the Oregon Ghost Conference that I actually co-founded with him.
Oh, wow.
And did a hell of a lot with the first 3 years it existed. I'm not. Sometimes I attend now, but I'm not involved with the running of it anymore.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so I think things like that can make a difference too, just in the feel. And well, I'll give you an example. One of the places we have, I'm not going to give away too much of the story, but one of the places we have is the site of some, quote, justice that wasn't legal and wasn't real, but it kept us from having a settler Indian war.
Oh,
And so a tribe turned over 5 men who volunteered to stand trial for a crime they weren't involved with. And of course, they were found guilty and hung, even though they were innocent. The witnesses weren't at the site, and but it was a pretty major massacre in part of. Well, actually, we weren't even a territory yet. We were still the Oregon country.
wow.
We didn't have a legal format yet. That didn't happen until we were a territory. And we almost were British. One vote. And it was tied the first vote. The second or third vote, we took the American model, not the British model.
Oh, wow.
So 1 vote, and I could have been in Canada, and that would have been nice. But I think all of that. Oh, anyway, what happens is people go through that area. Now it's a spooky area anyway, but and these men were hung, and where I take them is real close to where they were hung, and as close as we can get. And people, before I tell the story, often feel pressure on their chest, like they can't breathe,
Wow.
or they feel pressure on their necks. I've had people choke that I had to get them out of there before they collapsed.
Yeah.
And they didn't know the story.
Oh, wow.
And once we'd leave, it would go away. Or in the case of the pressure on the neck or some of these things, once I told the story, it would go away.
Oh, wow.
And there would always be a feeling of gratitude, not so much from the natives, the Americans, but from the European based settlers.
Wow.
And so the people that did the deed are grateful to have the record set because they know they helped commit murder.
Yeah.
And right or wrong reasons, I mean, both sides were scared to death. Both sides made made sacrifices and compromises to avoid a bigger problem.
Wow.
And so, but I think that's, that's heavy activity that still lingers to this day. And I think it's because of the trauma. And it's not like it was a days long event or something that happened every week. It's
Yeah.
a one off. But it was pretty traumatic. And then we've got some of the old dock area where things happen that I think are just more part of the impact of decades of people loading and unloading steamboats and passengers and all the
Wow.
rest of it. And so people have seen the woman standing in the river, only the dock is what she's standing on. The dock's just not there anymore.
Yeah.
Things like that. Then we've also had a lot of physical activity there. And I'd have people who could swear their best friend was holding their hands, and while I was talking, and then when I finished, I'd turn and look, and nobody was there.
Wow.
And we would see people, shadowy people, running around that there was nobody there, or people leaning on a big pipe up there, and nobody around. And so it's fascinating. But I think, again, that's a place that it's on the river, and it had all that activity for decades. And so I think it makes a difference.
Oh yeah. I think it does too.
Hmm. But now, what about where you live? I don't know how much you've got going on, or
Well, I mean, I don't know how much we got going on because no one really does an investigation around here, really. At least not since the pandemic. So,
yeah. But are there stories of haunted places?
oh yeah, there is, but not very big and historic places. It's Wisconsin, so
Yeah, I just wasn't. I wasn't sure. I hadn't been. I've been to your state, but I don't think I've been to where you are.
yeah.
Um,
I am close to Green Bay and Door County. So,
okay. And I was there when we were still using horses and wagons. So, and it was the first half of the '70s,
oh well,
and so things have changed. Half our audience wasn't born yet.
yeah,
Um, so I just wasn't sure. Because the activity here has gone on long before anybody ever thought of doing ghost hunting or anything like
oh
that.
yeah, absolutely.
And we had some at the McLaughlin house. We had some fake stories, so you always have to be careful. We had for a while, and I'm a member of the McLaughlin Memorial Association. Oh, thank you, Rita. Um, and I used to be a trustee, but not now. And the national parks own the McLaughlin House now. It's the house the father of Oregon built.
Okay.
McLaughlin was quite a man. He worked for the Hudson's Bay Company and was supposed to keep the Americans out. Well, he had too big of a heart,
Yeah.
and that's hours worth of story. So I'm not going to go into all that. But
Okay.
okay, where was I going? Oh, the McLaughlin Memorial Association owned the house for decades. We're the ones that moved it up a 130-foot cliff with one horse,
Oh wow.
um, and saved it from demolition because it had fallen into decline and had been used as a Chinese laborers' hotel for a while, had been a house of negotiable affection for a while, had been a stable for goats. I mean,
Oh
and this
wow.
is actually it's a mini mansion. It's really quite elegant and quite a large house.
Wow.
But um, the only source of revenue the association had at that time was ticket sales, and
Yeah.
these old places need a lot of money to upkeep. So one of the docents made up a couple of ghost stories,
Really.
and we've set the record straight on those. And also, there were a couple of stories that simply had to do with the structure of the house was in so much need of repair. When you step on a board at one end of the room, it would set the rocking chair off at the other end. It
Wow.
wasn't McLaughlin sitting in his rocking chair rocking,
Yeah.
it was the loose board.
Mm.
And, you know, with investigation, that's all part of what you have to do.
Oh yeah.
However,
Absolutely.
there are lots of credible, true stories there, including the music Rocky and I have both heard at midnight from the piano when we've been outside, or friends of mine seeing McLaughlin's face or Margarita's wife's faces out the window, or, you know, things like that. So, um, but that again was a house, it's not in its original location, but that house was a retirement home, but it wound up housing a lot of people who came across the trail broke and often sick, and McLaughlin would take people in sometimes.
Wow.
Um, and you know, he's called the father of Oregon for a reason,
Yeah.
and the Native Americans appreciated and liked him as well because his wife was half Cree,
Oh, okay.
and he treated them with respect and as humans,
Yeah.
and um, and he was educated in Scotland,
Oh wow.
from Canada, but you know,
Yeah.
McLaughlin is a good Scottish name.
Yep. Well, I do know that they're not far away from here. You can catch the beginning of the. I don't know, I know you can catch the Oregon Trail and walk it for however far you can go. So,
Mm, okay, I didn't know it was up that far.
yep.
Excellent. Yeah, I've been on the ends of it over here, but not as much around the country.
Yeah.
Pieces of it, I guess, around the country, but um, I have a friend that has been appointed by the governor as part of the trail protection and restoration
Oh, wow.
for our historic trails, and he's taken some friends of mine and myself out to parts of the historic parts of the trail nearby, because it ends in my town.
Yeah.
The official end of the Oregon Trail was about 4 miles from me.
Oh wow.
So, and I haven't heard much about whether or not that site is haunted, because that's where the settlers camped while they were getting their land claims before they
Right.
could go out to them, all that, all the rest of it. So, I don't know. I'll have to do a little bit more.
Yeah, that'd be interesting because you'd think like, well, especially during mining days, when people are digging for gold, a lot of people kill each other over that. So,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I haven't heard much violence here with it. And I think in part that's because we were a lot so much at the beginning of it. The Oregon Trail pretty much started about 1843, 1844, by the time it really started bringing over a lot of people. Um, and I have relatives that were here in 1842 or 1843.
mhm.
They didn't hang out too long, but they went further south. But parts of the area are named after my family,
Wow.
on my mom's side. But um, yeah, it's interesting. But I want to go. Is anybody else in the comments have any comments about the strength of the history in affecting the area.
Not right now, but a couple people just came in. So
Is anybody out there want to share their thoughts? Because I'm just sitting here rambling.
but that's good though. I like hearing from you. You have a lot of knowledge.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's one of the things I do well is ramble.
That's okay. That's what it's all about.
But I'd love to hear other people's ideas about this.
I'd like to know what you figured out. And you went to Egypt, right, for a while?
Yes. Hmm.
I'd like to know what you saw there.
Oh, Egypt is incredible. Only don't go in late May and early June. 10 o'clock in the morning and 107 degrees in the shade,
Wow.
if you can find it.
Wow.
And trust me, you can't. You hug the sides of temples and stuff that where you get a little bit of shade. It's how you move. Yeah,
Yeah.
he did. One of the brothers is buried probably about 8 or 9 miles from me.
Oh wow. I'd like to see
His
that
daughter
too.
brought him over to be buried here instead of where he was. But when you're in those temples and seeing the processions
Mhm.
down them and watching the crowds and watching, okay, yeah, that's a Greek. That one's from someplace else. Oh, that's an Assyrian. Um, and even the minor priest or the big priest who
Mhm.
actually believes in it,
Yeah.
who knows it's a control and money making scheme, who knows that it's fake, but it's a necessary part of maintaining a stable civilization because
Yeah.
you've got to have unifying forces other than just law. Um, how many of them believe partly, but also believe the other part?
Yeah.
Um, oh, that's me, and I'm a Greek tourist, or oh, that's me, I'm a minor priest. Um, things like that, or watching the people in the tombs doing the sculpting, doing the painting, writing the prayers. I say writing, not painting, because in iconography with the Orthodox and the Eastern branches of the Catholic Church, you don't paint an icon, you write it. It's a prayer. So
Yeah.
you're writing that prayer, even though it's a picture of a saint or something.
Wow.
And so I'm assuming that the painting and the imagery and the writing for prayers and protection and everything else would be considered more of the same, making it more of a document than just an art form.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know how Egyptologists think about that. I need to ask one now.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm Facebook friends with a couple of them. I might be able to
Oh,
actually get an answer.
wow.
And going to any place like that, um, going to Troy and seeing women mixing blood from the human sacrifice in a cauldron, that was interesting. And then finding out, yeah, they were still doing human sacrifice at that period of the Bronze Age.
Wow.
So, because I wasn't sure historically, and
Yeah.
especially in that area, I know more about a lot of that up in the British Isles than I do down where it all started and where
Wow.
my interests truly lie. It's just I hadn't gotten there as much.
Yeah.
Um, just any of it. Watching the busy streets in a place like Ephesus, and when you can see below. I mean, Troy has 9 layers. And the city of Troy legend is not the lowest level by any means. Ephesus, the level we see is the Roman, and with some Greek influence still, and it's what, the 7th or 9th layer.
Yeah.
And when you look out over these places and you see this flat plain and see ships in it, and it's like, oh yeah, that's right, this is all silted up.
Yeah.
I can see why this was a seaport now. Or even just sitting. Oh, there was this. My second trip to Turkey was, the motivation was a friend of mine getting married, so I went to the wedding in Izmir, and I stayed in a little resort town, real close to Izmir, and that little resort town had a small buses that would take you down to other places, and there was another one just right on the water that was real pretty, and I used to go there and climb up in the castle or sit and have a glass of wine or a coffee or something on the seawall area, just overlooking the Aegean and the ships and the boats and people diving into the water, and just all this stuff, and what reaching out and seeing the triremes, things like that. That part of Turkey was settled originally by the Minoans, and there were probably people there before them. But it's a very Greek
Yeah.
origin area, and so when you can go and just watch these things take place, it's really fascinating.
Can't imagine.
Yeah, and I like to teach people how to do it.
Now, hopefully, eventually, I'll get there.
Yeah, it takes work. I've been working on this. I'm 67. I've been working on my skills for roughly 50 years.
Wow.
Not always as hard as other times, and there have been times, when a little bit less. I've been professional maybe 15.
Well,
I can't remember exactly. Maybe not quite that long. And that was even having my therapist tell me I needed to go professional. So, it's it's not like a switch you flip on. It's like anything else. It takes study. It takes work.
yeah.
It takes practice.
Yeah. It's all. I think it's all going to end up depending on how long I want to practice it. If that's the way I want to go, or if I'm just going to go wherever. You know.
And it's okay to start out doing one thing for a while and let that lead you to something else. I mean, that's so much of what I find in life. It's tuning in and using one tool for more awareness can lead then to something else that takes you closer to the true direction. And that doesn't mean the first was wrong. It means it was a stepping stone to the next, which
Yeah.
is only a stepping stone really to the one after that.
Yeah.
If we listen. And it makes a big difference.
Well, to make you, I don't know if it will make you happy, but since we talked when we did our little session alone, I
Uh-huh.
had another vision of a longhorned Highland cow talk to me in a dream.
Okay.
And then I had a voice I thought I heard outside, but I realized later it was in my head. And
Okay.
it was a British woman trying to get my attention by saying hello.
Cool.
So I'm like, okay, well, I don't know where the British woman came from, but then somebody explained that I have some ties there. And I'm like, well, okay, but why would it be? Why would I think somebody's outside trying to get my attention?
Well, that's just where they were. It was an entity, and you thought the voice was outside because you wouldn't have thought it was inside, or it sounded. The voices come through sometimes in a way that are very different.
Yeah.
That's part of why you can be in a very noisy, busy place and tell the difference often between an EVP voice and the noise around you, because
Yeah.
it's so different. Um, and so it was somebody around trying to get your attention. Could have been a living person just sending energy to you.
Oh yeah. I didn't think about that, but
You
and like
know, it's
if you
like
go the
Vivian.
logical way, there's no British people here, at least where I live.
Yeah,
Like, okay, why that? You know.
yeah. And I mean, shoot, my house is like Grand Central Station. Um, the other night it sounded like somebody walking in the gravel around the corner of my house, one
Wow.
side of the back and around the back, or one side of the side and around the back.
Mm.
Only I couldn't find anybody. Security cameras didn't pick up anyone. And the part of the house I heard 2 feet crunching gravel on doesn't have any gravel.
Wow.
And earlier that day, I saw a flash of a shirt down by the guest room's end of the house. I had my housekeeper was here cleaning, but she wasn't down there. She was in a totally different part of the house. Um, and it's just normal. My mom used to see things and just figure it was a trick of her eye. So it's
Yeah.
not even my parents. I've heard footsteps running down the street when there's been nobody outside. And this was all a big field when I was a kid,
Wow.
bordering on filbert orchards. And I'm not aware of any Native American villages up here.
Yeah.
This would have been somebody's land claim, homestead, but I'm not quite sure whose. And I've never had any indication that the part of it I'm on, had ever had a house on it before.
Yeah.
Um,
You're trying to talk about the history and or the does the history intensify the haunting or the strength of the haunting?
right.
But
And we digress occasionally.
yeah, we've gotten way from there. It's come up to an hour anyways. I know.
Yeah. Well, and
Yes, it has.
yeah, unfortunately, it still gets expensive sometimes, Robert. But yeah, and this was a topic that we don't have a whole lot of physical proof information that we can just go back and spend an hour going over minute detail,
Yeah.
which frankly I think would be very interesting. But and actually, it's flown by.
Yep. Do you have something coming up this Saturday?
Yes, this Saturday I have my show, Metaphysical Insights, which will be at 2 o'clock Pacific time, and we're still on daylight time until 2 a.m. Sunday morning.
Okay.
So for those of you in the UK, my show will be 9 p.m. instead of 10 p.m. And my guest this week is the one and only Mr. Barry Fitzgerald.
Oh wow.
He's a wonderful man, and he and his wife are friends of mine, I'm very honored to say. And he's always up to all kinds of fascinating things. So I'm looking forward to this very much. And then what's going on Sunday? Is there something going on Sunday?
I don't think anything's going on Sunday or this Friday.
Okay.
Tomorrow, I don't even know if we have a guest. Vivian's been sick, and she apologizes for not being here today. By the way, forgot to mention that.
Oh, who was that?
Vivian
Oh, okay.
and
Yeah, she's ditching me and Dana's ditching me.
yeah.
I get the hint. I will let them both know about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. One of the things I'll be doing.
Oh, that's great, Robert. I didn't know that. I love Scotland, and I need to go back. Last time I was there, I think, was 2018, and it was like 2 or 3 nights, and just across the border, looking at some of the Neolithic sites that were just right there. I think I had 1 full day and a couple nights is all, and I hadn't been around the rest of the country since 1984. And
Well, I don't qualify, Robert. Then you have to be 60 years old. I'm only 52, so
okay, well, I'm more than qualified. But I usually hire a car and drive.
yeah, I would too.
But that's a challenge over there.
Mm.
The roads are as wide as a car, and you've got 2-way traffic on the road.
And
It
sometimes
makes an
silent
interesting
cows.
dance.
All right. Well, with that, guys, good night. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, William.
Thank you, Eric. It's great to be on with you, and thank you everybody for tuning in. I appreciate it. I don't usually get to talk to all of you on this show, so have a wonderful time, and hopefully you can figure out the meanderings we went on today.
Hopefully. Well, good night, everyone.